Thom Hartmann here on the news. You need to know this. Despite warnings from economists to not mess around with a debt ceiling vote, Republicans are messing around with a debt ceiling vote. Earlier this week, Speaker of the House John Boehner said Republicans would only support an increase in the limit if it's tied to trillions of dollars in cuts, an announcement that caused the stock market to plummet over fears of a global economic meltdown. Yesterday, the Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, echoed those words by saying Senate Republicans would not support an increase unless it's tied to huge cuts in Medicare and Medicaid. This is another hostage crisis in the making, with Republicans threatening to blow up the American economy unless they're allowed to screw poor and elderly people out of their health care and government safety nets and hand that money to their rich buddies. Republicans figure it's a win-win. Either way, they get what they want by putting into place their sociopathic agenda of telling poor people they're on their own or crashing the economy and ruining the president's chances of re-election next year. People who care about the environment are screwed. Republicans are handing our Gulf of Mexico over to oil corporations. A new bill entitled the Putting the Gulf Back to Work Act passed out of the House of Representatives on Wednesday, ending the moratorium on drilling in the Gulf and giving oil corporations free rein to explore for new wells as if the BP oil spill last year never happened. But a sneaky little provision in the bill makes sure oil corporations will have a favorable audience in the courtroom should they screw up again. The bill says that any lawsuits against oil corporations in the Gulf must be brought in front of the Fifth Circuit Court. Why the Fifth Circuit Court? Because it's the one down in the South that's bought off by big oil. 10 of the 16 judges on the court have stakes in oil, including the chief judge, who owns over $250,000 in oil investments. Other judges on the court have attended legal junkets supported by big oil companies. Looks like we now have in America 3 co-equal branches of government, each one owned by big oil. In the best of the rest of the news, it's official. There was a nuclear meltdown at the crippled Daiichi plant in Japan. TEPCO workers stepped inside reactor number 1 for the first time last week and discovered that some of the nuclear fuel rods had been exposed to air and melted down, burning a hole in the containment vessel and leaking tons of radioactive wastewater into the ocean. That means it's back to the drawing board for plant workers who were hoping to perform a cold shutdown of the plant in the next few days. Now that task is to contain the meltdown, which will likely affect the area for the next couple 100,000 years. The Republican-controlled House Armed Services Committee recently approved a new defense spending bill for next year totaling $700 billion, largest budget ever for the Pentagon. So much for trying to reduce the deficit. Included in that spending bill is a new engine program for the F-35 fighter plane that's been widely criticized as unnecessary and simply a handout to Rolls-Royce and GE, who are spearheading the project. The engine program was voted down earlier this year, but the Armed Services Committee, enough defense contractor lobbyists were able to convince enough lawmakers to stick it back in at a hefty price tag to you and me of $380 million. Turns out GE spent a mere $220,000 on members of the Armed Services Committee for that $380 million return. Looks like the corporation's investment has paid off. Increasingly, the best business investment big corporations can make today is to buy their own pet legislators. Small companies are pretty much out in the cold. Oligarchs only need apply. In our Fox so-called news is wrong again news. Remember back during the Egyptian Revolution a few months ago when Fox so-called news devoted most of their coverage to fear-mongering about the Muslim Brotherhood and how it's going to step into the power vacuum in Egypt and create a caliphate around the world. Turns out that's all it was, fear-mongering. Officials within the Muslim Brotherhood announced yesterday that the party will not be seeking the presidency when the nation holds an election in November to democratically elect ousted Hosni Mubarak's successor. The Brotherhood released a statement saying any member of the Muslim Brotherhood who nominates himself for the presidency will be expelled because it is a violation of the Brotherhood's collective decision. So hopefully anyone at Fox News, so-called news, can breathe a little easier, all the folks over there, and back off on whatever they're smoking there that's causing these paranoid delusions. If given a choice between national security and the NRA, the Republicans choose the NRA every time. Upon finding out that individuals on the terrorist watch list can walk into gun shops and purchase handguns without any problem at all, Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley introduced legislation to close that loophole in our gun laws. It's legislation that was supported not only by President Obama, but also by President Bush. But since the NRA has a conniption over any new gun laws, even if it's a law to keep guns out of the hands of terrorists, Bought-off Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee voted down the bill, all with no votes, all coming from Republicans. So now that they approve of terrorists buying guns and they couldn't find bin Laden, can we finally all admit that the Republican Party is not the party of national security? Also, considering Bush crashed our economy back in 2008, they aren't the party of economic security either. So why should we vote for these guys in the future? Crazy alert, always be prepared. Looking for an emergency market to get rich? Try bunker building. Yes, indeed. As December 2012 approaches, more and more people are starting to worry about the apocalypse that some say was predicted by the Mayan calendar. And for the very, very rich, it's a big business. They're building bunkers. Two bunker building companies in the U.S. have seen their sales increase by 100% since the earthquake in Daiichi. Considering that they cost hundreds of thousands of bucks, it's really only for the very rich. And that's the way it is today, Friday, May 13th, 2011. I'm Thom Hartmann on the news.